Okay, let's dive into something really thought-provoking today. We've got our hands on an article titled From Inferno to Garden, A Cosmic Transformation. It's by Wahid Abu Isra.
Yeah, and just from that title, you can guess this isn't going to be your standard take on the main topic, which is etho, Jahannam.
Right.
Most people, when they hear that word, they probably think first of the religious idea, often, well, hellfire, torment, that kind of thing.
Absolutely, that's the common understanding.
Yeah.
But this source, wow, it takes a really fascinating, maybe even kind of radical turn.
Mm-hmm.
Its core argument is that Jahannam here isn't just presented as, a place of punishment. It's framed as something much bigger, a universal
It's
principle.
universal. How so?
Well, the author suggests it's actually a cosmic law, deeply tied to growth and transformation, applying to, well, basically everything.
Okay, so a total reframing, moving way beyond the usual interpretation to explore what the author sees as maybe a deeper inherent function.
Exactly. So our mission for this deep dive is pretty clear. We're sticking just to this one source. We're here only to explore the perspective in Wahid Abu Isra's text.
Right.
We want to unpack what it means and see how it tries to redefine, how we think about challenge, difficulty, and maybe even fulfillment.
Hmm.
Let's get right into how the author actually builds this case.
Okay. So the source kicks off by suggesting that language itself, specifically Arabic, what the author calls lisan al-Arabi al-Mubin, the clear Arabic tongue, might actually hold keys to deeper cosmic structures, meanings embedded right in the language.
That's a big claim about language. Okay,
Mostly.
so how does that connect specifically to the word chi?
Well, this is where the linguistic rereading happens. The article puts forward the idea that the word ki, Jahannam, contains within it the meaning of Shekaiskanta Jahatanama.
Jahannama. Okay. And that translates to something like the direction or maybe destination of growth.
Precisely. The author is basically saying the word itself points towards development, towards growth. And to make this cosmic idea clearer, the source uses a pretty simple but I think powerful analogy, a seed.
A seed. Like
Yeah.
planting a seed in the dirt.
Exactly that. A seed doesn't just, pop into a plant out in the open air. It needs very specific conditions, usually underground.
Right.
The author points to things like, well, heat, the pressure from the soil all around it being deep down, the darkness, even the resistance it has to push against to actually break through the surface.
Okay.
So the source equates these necessary, often difficult conditions, this intense process the seed goes through. It equates that symbolically with what Jahannam represents in this particular view.
Ah, I see. So it's the environment and maybe the push needed for potential to become actual.
That's how the source seems to frame it, yeah. It's the necessary environment, the necessary direction for growth.
So it's not passive or like a final stop for something, but it's an active process.
Yeah.
A direction something has to move through to reach its potential.
That's how it's presented here. And then the source takes this idea and argues it applies, well, universally. It's not just a spiritual thing. It's presented as a fundamental principle of existence.
Okay, so everything has its own chest. What kind of examples did the author use to show that?
The source gets pretty specific. It talks about how even abstract things go through this phase, like an idea.
An idea. How does an idea go through Jahannam?
Well, think about it. An idea faces doubt, right? Scrutiny, maybe criticism from others, or even just your own internal resistance to it. That's its Jahannam.
Huh. Okay, that actually makes a certain kind of sense. An idea isn't really tested or sharpened until it hits that kind of friction.
Right. And the source says work has its Jahannam, too. Dealing with obstacles, the internal struggle when you're creating something, the whole process of evaluation, refinement. It's the inherent difficulty in doing.
And this applies even more broadly.
Oh, yeah. The source explicitly mentions relationships, projects, visions, basically anything that starts as potential and is trying to become something real or complete. They all hit their own specific Jahannam.
Their period of intense testing,
Yeah,
shaping.
exactly. That shaping phase.
Okay, so based just on this source, the big takeaway here seems crucial. This Jahannam phase isn't the end point. It's specifically framed as the beginning or at least a necessary stage of transformation.
It's presented very much like the crucible,
Yeah.
where potential gets forged into something real, and this leads the source to lay out a whole cosmic cycle. It's arguing this isn't just about the tough part, it's part of a bigger journey.
The universal cycle. Okay, walk us through the stages as the article describes them.
All right. So according to the author, it starts with the seed. This is like the initial intention, the idea before it's manifest, the creative spark, pure potential.
Got it. Seed stage, Then what?
Then, the source says, that potential enters the direction of growth, Jahannam.
The phase we've been talking about. The
Yeah.
pressure cooker.
Exactly. The heat, the pressure, the testing. After this, the source talks about friction, pressure, and testing itself. It uses these Arabic terms, yes, atol, wafat.
Ratkol wafacho. What does that imply?
It sort of implies a process of, like, uniting and separating, breaking things down, and then reforming them, a real dynamic process within that growth phase.
Seems like a kind of cosmic wrestling match happening there.
You could kind of see it that way from the description, yeah. And if something successfully navigates that, the next stage described is the emergence of a star.
A star. What does that represent?
It represents a stage of brilliance, manifestation, becoming visible, powerful, the potential finally breaking through and shining.
So the idea catches on, the project gets launched, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and that leads, in the source's model, to stillness. The term used is sukun nun. This is described as a state of stability, of balance, that's achieved after all that intensity of growth and emergence.
Okay. A period where things settle down, find their equilibrium.
Right. And then finally comes the Jannah. Now, the source defines this very specifically, not just as a place, but as, and I'm quoting roughly here, everything you have reaped and gathered from what was prepared for you after crossing the stage of growth.
Wow. Okay. That definition really ties it back to the process, doesn't it? It makes Jannah sound like the direct result, the payoff from successfully getting through Jahannam.
That's exactly the connection the author is drawing. They even link this definition back to the Arabic root E-J-N-Y.
J-N-Y.
Yeah, which means to reap or to gather, like harvesting crops. It reinforces this idea that Jannah, in this context, is the harvest. It's directly tied to the effort, the passage through that growth stage, through your personal charan.
So sticking purely to this article's perspective, going through your yai isn't just bad luck or misfortune. It's presented as like an existentially necessary condition to reach that state of completion, to gather your harvest, to arrive at your jhana.
Yes. And this perspective leads the source to propose what you could call a core existential equation.
An equation.
Sort of. The idea is everything material or abstract must pass through a Jahannam phase, that period of intense testing and pressure. And that phase determines its capacity for growth.
Okay.
And then the results it reaps, the jhana it achieves, are a direct outcome of the direction it took during that intense phase.
And the author is saying this applies to every single person. Everyone faces their own unique shul.
Yes, the source is very clear on that. Everyone encounters their specific set of challenges, pressures, their own Jahannam. But here's the critical difference the author points out.
Okay.
It lies in the outcome, how you navigate it. Some people, the source says, make it a direction for growth and belonging. They use the pressure to build, to connect, and that leads to their harvest, their jhana.
Right.
Others, though, according to the source, make it a place of decline and extinguishing. They get overwhelmed, maybe disintegrate under the pressure, and don't reach that jhana state.
So it really hinges on how you navigate that direction.
Yeah.
Wow. Now, okay, the author also makes a particularly bold claim about the Arabic language itself in understanding all this.
They certainly do. The source argues that the lisan al-Arabia al-Mubin, the clear Arabic tongue, has this unique power, this capacity to reveal the true cosmic meaning locked inside words, even words from other languages.
That's quite a claim. How do they demonstrate that? Is there an example given, like taking a word from English or something?
Yes, exactly. The author uses the English word hell as the primary example.
Okay, hell. How does that work?
Well, the author takes the phonetic sounds of hell, they render them into what they see as the corresponding Arabic phonetic equivalents.
So mapping English sounds to Arabic letters, phonetically.
Kind of, yeah. The source suggests the sounds HLL and maybe interprets the vowel sound as an A or something similar, so you get sounds like HALL or HL. Then the author claims, if you rearrange these sounds using the inherent balance or structure of Arabic, you arrive at the Arabic word hilal.
Hilal. That means the crescent moon, right?
Correct.
Okay, hang on. How does the author connect the English word hell, broken down phonetically, rearranged in Arabic, to get hilal, the crescent moon, and then loop that back to this whole cosmic cycle we discussed? That seems like a big leap.
It is a big leap, and it's presented as a core piece of the author's argument about language. The source explains the symbolism of the hilal, the crescent moon.
Okay.
It's presented as the birth of light coming out of complete darkness. That first sliver of moon you see after the new moon.
Right, the very beginning of the cycle.
Exactly. It represents the start and end of a lunar cycle. It's the very first phase of appearance, before the moon grows to its full brilliance, and then eventually it shrinks back and returns to hiddenness, to darkness.
Ah, okay, I think I see the connection the author is making now, that symbolism. It does kind of echo the cosmic cycle they laid out earlier, doesn't it?
How so?
Well, emerging from the darkness and pressure of whole, like the scene underground, or potential in darkness, then get the first sign of light, the appearance, which is the halal. Then that grows into full brilliance, which was the star stage. Then stability, which was the stillness phase. And finally, completion and reaping the rewards, which was Jannah.
That's precisely the link the source draws. And the author's conclusion from this specific hell to halal example is that it demonstrates their main claim about Arabic.
Which is?
That the cosmic truth or the underlying reality of a word, even if it's from a totally different language like English, can be revealed or unlocked when you view it through the unique structure, the balance of the Lisan al-Arabi al-Mubin.
Wow. Okay, so drawing purely from this one source,
Yeah.
we've really explored a profound reimagining here. Jannah is presented not merely as, punishment or an endpoint, but as this necessary direction of growth.
Right.
A crucial phase that everything, ideas, projects, relationships, even people, apparently, has to navigate to truly manifest its potential and reach its fulfillment, its shield.
It's framed in this text as a fundamental process, yeah? A law of creation, almost.
So here's something to think about, based entirely on the source material we've just unpacked. If passing through your unique personal period of intense challenge, testing, pressure, is, according to this author, a necessary condition to reap your own shay, your harvest, well, what might that imply about how you face or maybe even embrace the difficult passages in your own life?
Yeah.
Adopting this kind of cosmic perspective, even just as an idea to consider from this one article, shift anything about how you view the nature of struggle itself. Definitely something to ponder.